watched my daughter through the diner window, her apron already stained from the lunch rush, her hair pulled back in a messy bun she'd probably fixed 3 times since her shift started at 6 that morning. 22 years old, pre-med at Ohio State, Dean's List 2 semesters running, and she still picked up 4 shifts a week at this place off Route 40 because she refused to let me pay her rent. The November air cut right through my flannel jacket as I stood there in the parking lot. Pride and something close to ache, sitting side by side in my chest the way they always did when I watched her work. Her name was Chloe. My daughter, my whole reason for getting up every morning since her mother, Diane, passed from ovarian cancer when Chloe was 6. 16 years of just the 2 of us. I drove a delivery truck for a regional logistics company out of Columbus. Made enough. Enough for a decent apartment. Enough to help with books and groceries. Enough to sleep at night without pure dread. But Chloe never wanted my help for long. She'd thank me, she'd hug me, and then she'd go pick up another shift. My phone buzzed. My brother-in-law Spencer's name on the screen. "Hey, you're still coming Thursday, right? Thanksgiving. Naomi's been planning this for weeks. Chloe and I will be there." "What time?" There was a pause, just long enough to be a pause. About that, Naomi was thinking maybe this year it's more of an adult thing. You know how it gets. Her family's flying in. Her cousin from Charleston, the Whitfields. Naomi's cousin Brent and his wife. Commercial real estate. The kind of people who mention their zip code within the first 2 minutes of conversation. Chloe's 22, Spencer. She's not a kid. No, I know. It's just... He stopped. Started again. She waitresses, right? At that diner. Naomi's worried it might come up. The Whitfields are there a certain way. They ask a lot of questions. Naomi just wants it to go smoothly. I was quiet for a second. Through the window I could see Chloe laughing at something an older customer said. She had her mother's laugh. Wide open, completely unguarded. She waitresses to pay her own rent while she's in pre-med on a Dean's List scholarship. That's what she does. I know. Look, it's not about what I think. We'll be there Thursday, I said. 6 o'clock. I hung up. I didn't tell Chloe about the call. That night we ate leftover chili at the kitchen table, and she talked about a biochemistry exam and asked whether she should bring a pie or a salad to Spencer's, and I said pie. And she said she was going to make one from scratch because she'd watched 3 YouTube tutorials on lattice crust, and she needed to practice. She practiced twice that week. The second one came out nearly perfect. Thursday afternoon, we drove down to Bexley, where Spencer and Naomi had bought a colonial revival 4 years ago, after Naomi's father retired from his cardiology practice and made some things financially possible. It was a beautiful house. Wide porch, original hardwood, back deck with a gas fireplace. Naomi had done the whole place up in that style that looks effortless until you start to notice that every single thing in it was purchased from a specific kind of store. We got there at 5:30. I planned it that way, same reason I always showed up a little early to things, to be useful, to carry something, to set a table, to show we were grateful. The driveway was already full. A white Escalade, a leased BMW sedan with a dealer plate still on it, a silver Mercedes SUV. I parked my F-150 along the curb. Chloe climbed out carrying the pie in both hands like it was made of glass. "It looks great, Bug," I said. "The lattice is a little uneven on the left side. Nobody's going to notice. I'll notice." We walked to the front door. I rang the bell. From inside, the sound of conversation and something instrumental playing. The kind of music that doesn't have words, so it can't offend anyone. Naomi answered the door. She was dressed like the house intentional, expensive, in a way designed to look casual. Her eyes went to me first, then to Chloe, then to the pie, and something shifted in her expression the way a window shade drops by an inch. "You're early. Thought we could help set up. It's already done." Her gaze returned to Chloe's apron strings, still visible where she'd tucked them into her coat pocket and forgotten. "Spencer's in the living room." "Chloe, honey, maybe you want to freshen up? There's a bathroom at the end of the hall." "I'm fine, thank you." The thing is, Naomi lowered her voice like she was telling us something considerate instead of something else entirely. Brent's wife has a sensitivity to certain smells, restaurant smells especially. It's a whole thing. There's a mudroom off the side entrance. It's heated. You could wait there until everyone gets settled and then come on in. It's really just 20 minutes. I felt Chloe go still beside me. I showered after my shift, Chloe said. Her voice was completely even, which was how I knew she was working hard to keep it that way. I'm sure you did, sweetheart. It clings. You know how it is with cooking smells. I baked a pie, and that was so thoughtful. Naomi's smile was warm and hollow as a plastic jack-o'-lantern. The mudroom is right around the side. There's a bench, some magazines. Naomi, I started. It's okay, Dad. Chloe's voice had gone small in a way I hadn't heard in years. I'll wait. No, you will not. Please. She looked at me with something that broke my heart a little. Please don't make it a thing. She walked around the side of the house before I could find the right words. I stood there for a moment, looking at my sister-in-law, this woman my brother had chosen, this woman who had just sent my daughter to wait in the mudroom like a dog on Thanksgiving. Spencer's in the living room, Naomi said again. I should have turned around right then. I should have gone after Chloe, taken her arm, walked her back to the truck, and gone somewhere that deserved her. A part of me knew that, but I went inside. I told myself I'd get Spencer, that Spencer would fix it, that Spencer would make it right. He was standing near the fireplace with a drink in his hand, talking to a man I didn't know. Spencer and I had always gotten along. He was my brother-in-law through my late wife's side, technically not even family by blood, once Diane was gone. But we'd kept the relationship alive for Chloe's sake, for the sake of what had been. He looked uncomfortable the moment he saw my face. She sent Chloe to wait in the mudroom, I said. He looked at his drink. It's just until people settle in. Brent's wife is... She's a 22-year-old girl in pre-med who baked a pie from scratch and drove 40 minutes to be here. I know that. But Naomi worked really hard on tonight, and the Whitfields are there. They're important to her. This dinner matters. My daughter matters. I'm not saying she doesn't. He said it quietly, the way people say things they don't entirely believe. It's 20 minutes and then she can come in and it'll be fine. I looked at him for a moment. Then I turned and went through the kitchen and out the side door. The mudroom was off the garage entrance, a narrow space with hooks for coats and a low wooden bench along one wall. Heated, like Naomi had said, though barely. Chloe was sitting on the bench with her coat still on, scrolling through her phone with her thumb moving too fast to actually be reading anything. The pie was on the bench beside her. Hey, I said. She looked up, tried to smile. Didn't make it. Someone left half a bag of pretzels in here, she said. So at least there's that. I sat down next to her. We're leaving. Dad, we are leaving. If we leave, you and Spencer will have another thing. You've already had 2 things this year. She said it patiently, like she'd been thinking it through since she sat down. I don't want to be the reason you lose the last of Mom's family. That stopped me. I looked at her, this young woman, who had absorbed her mother's kindness so completely. It sometimes made me feel like Diane was still somewhere in the room. And I asked, how long has this been going on? What? This, Naomi. This kind of thing. She set her phone face down on the bench. She's never really liked me, since I was probably 15, 16. What happened at 15? She thought about it. Spencer's retirement party. Remember, at the steakhouse, you went to the bathroom and she told me I should think about cosmetology school because I had a talent for it, which I think she meant as a compliment. But also I was already taking AP chemistry. What else? Last Christmas, she sat me at the kids' table. I was 21. Their neighbor's 9-year-old was next to me. Chloe, I didn't want to make it weird. What else? She picked up the pretzel bag, put it down again. She introduced me to the Whitfields last Easter as Spencer's niece who waitresses. Not pre-med, not Ohio State, just the waitress. She paused. That one kind of stuck. I sat with that for a moment. The Whitfields, who were right now standing in Naomi's living room drinking whatever she'd selected for the occasion, being introduced to my daughter as the waitress niece, as if the apron was the whole story, as if the 60-hour weeks, the biochemistry exams, the living alone at 22 in a city where rent started at $1,000, as if none of that was worth saying out loud. Why didn't you tell me? Because Spencer is your only real family left besides me. She said it simply, without accusation. I didn't want to take that from you. I put my arm around her. She leaned in the way she used to when she was small enough to fit under my arm completely. You are worth more than everyone in that house, I said. You know that. I know. I mean it. I know you mean it. She was quiet for a moment. She's going to complain that the pie wasn't warm. We're going to go inside and put it on the table, and everyone is going to eat it, and it's going to be the best thing on that table. Dad, we are going in, and we are going to sit at that table and hold our heads up because we have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Not one single thing. She looked at me. You're going to do something, aren't you? I'm going to sit down and eat Thanksgiving dinner with my daughter. You have that face. I don't have a face. She picked up the pie. You have a face. We went inside through the side door. The living room was full by then, maybe 25 people, close to 30. Naomi's cousin Brent and his wife were easy to spot, the kind of couple that dressed like they were posing for a catalogue. Several people looked up when we came in, and I saw the moment they catalogued us my flannel, Chloe's coat that was from Target, the homemade pie in her hands instead of something from a bakery, and made their determinations. Naomi appeared at my elbow almost immediately. Oh, you found your way in. Let me take that pie to the kitchen. We've got it, Chloe said. The kitchen is... We've got it, I said. We carried it to the dining room, where the table was set in a way Naomi clearly wanted photographed. I found the place cards. Chloe's was at the very end, the corner spot between the wall and the door to the butler's pantry, where every server coming out of the kitchen would be passing directly behind her chair. My card was 2 seats away, separated from her by a couple I didn't know. I picked up both cards, moved us to 2 adjacent seats in the middle of the table. Naomi was beside me in seconds. Those are for the Whitfields. Moved them to the end. This seating arrangement took me 3 hours. Chloe and I are sitting here. Her voice dropped. You are being incredibly rude to guests in my home. I'm sitting next to my daughter at Thanksgiving dinner. If that's rude, I'm comfortable with it. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she picked up the 2 displaced cards and walked away without a word. Dinner was served in courses, which felt like a lot for Thanksgiving, but I understood that was the point. The conversation around me was mostly about things I had no investment in: real estate markets, a bathroom renovation, whether to ski Colorado or Utah this year. I checked on Chloe. She was eating, answering when people spoke to her, being gracious in the way she'd learned to be because she'd been doing it her whole life. About halfway through the main course, Brent's wife, her name was Claudette, I'd learned, leaned across the table toward Chloe, with the particular smile of someone who is about to ask a question they already feel good about asking. So Spencer tells me you're in school. Pre-med at Ohio State. I'm applying to med school's next cycle. How wonderful. And you work at a restaurant? A diner, yeah. To cover my rent. That must be exhausting. School and waitressing. She said waitressing the way some people say it, not meanly exactly, but with just enough distance to let you know it was a category below where she lived. You must not have much time for anything else. I manage. Brent worked in food service for 1 summer in college. Claudette smiled at her husband warmly. Burger place. We laugh about it now. Brent smiled. Character building. It's more than character building. It's more than character building, I said. The table didn't go quiet exactly. A few conversations continued at the other end, but the people near us were listening. She's worked that job for 3 years, I said. She pays her own rent, her own utilities, her own car insurance. She buys her own groceries and her own textbooks. She has a 3.9 GPA and an MCAT score that puts her in the 91st percentile. She's applying to 12 medical schools and she will get into several of them. I kept my voice even, conversational. She hasn't had her rent paid or her car bought or a donation made on her behalf to smooth anything over. Everything she has, she earned. So it's not character building. It's just character. Claudette blinked. Brent's smile had gone still. Dad, Chloe said softly. I was already standing up. I wasn't angry, that's the thing I remember most clearly about that moment. I wasn't loud or shaking or making a scene in the way Naomi would later describe it. I was just done. I had been done for a long time without fully admitting it, and now I was simply finished pretending otherwise. This is my daughter, I said. I wasn't talking to the Whitfields anymore. I was talking to the table, to the room, to Spencer, who was sitting very still at the far end with his wine glass halfway to his mouth. She is the most hard-working, most decent person in this room. She drove 40 minutes tonight after closing a weekend lunch shift to bring a pie she made from scratch twice, because she practiced it until the crust was right. She was sent to wait in the mudroom when she arrived because someone in this house decided her job made her an inconvenience to the evening. The room was completely quiet now, even the end of the table. She has never once asked for anything from anyone here. She has never complained, never made demands, never shown up without a gift or a contribution or a smile, even when she was treated like she was less than. Especially then. I let this go on for years because I told myself it wasn't that bad, that it wasn't worth the trouble, that keeping the peace mattered. I was wrong. The peace isn't worth what it costs. I looked at Spencer directly. He was looking at the table. You have a chance right now, I said quietly. To say something, he didn't. The silence stretched out long enough that it became its own answer. Okay, I said. I helped Chloe up. We walked to the front hall and got our coats. I could hear Naomi's voice starting up behind us, reconstructing the evening in real time, explaining to the room why we were the problem. At the door, I turned back once. The pie was still on the dining room table, untouched, the lattice crust slightly uneven on the left side, just like Chloe had said. You want to take it? Chloe asked. No, I said. Let them have it. We drove home. The highway at night, the radio playing low, the Columbus skyline appearing after about 30 minutes like something you'd been waiting for without knowing it. Neither of us spoke for a while. I'm sorry we left, I said eventually. I'm not. I should have done that a long time ago. You did it when it mattered. She was quiet for a beat. The 91st percentile thing was a little braggy. It was accurate. Still braggy. You earned braggy. We got home and ordered from the Thai place on 5th that stays open on holidays. Watched a movie. Fell asleep on the couch. I woke up around 2 with a crick in my neck and turned off the TV and sat there for a while in the dark, thinking about Spencer, about how I'd watched the calculation happen on his face and watched him decide. I thought about Diane, about what she would have done. I thought about whether I'd done the right thing or just the satisfying thing, and whether those were always different. I decided they weren't. Not always. Spencer called 4 days later. Not a texter call. I let it go to voicemail and listened to it standing in my kitchen with a cup of coffee going cold in my hand. He sounded tired. He said he'd thought about what I'd said. He said Naomi and I had never really gotten along, and he'd always minimized that, and he was sorry. He said he should have said something at the table. He didn't make excuses, which I appreciated. He said he understood if I needed time. I called him back. We talked for 40 minutes. It was uncomfortable in the way that honest conversations after long silences always are. I told him what Chloe had told me, the AP chemistry comment, the kids' table at 21, the way Naomi had introduced her to the Whitfields. He listened without interrupting. When I was done, he was quiet for a moment, and then he said, "I didn't know. I believed him, partly, mostly. Enough. It's not me you need to fix this with," I said. "It's her. I know. And I don't know if she'll want that. That's her call, not mine." He called Chloe the following week. She told me about it afterward, matter-of-factly, while we were both eating cereal at my kitchen table on a Sunday morning. She'd listened to what he said. She told him she appreciated it, but that she needed to see something change before she was ready to be around Naomi again. Spencer had said he understood and that he'd work on it. "Do you think he will?" I asked. She thought about it. "I think he'll try. Whether Naomi lets him is a different question." Spencer did try. He started calling more. He came to Chloe's apartment for dinner in February, just him, not Naomi, and she made the Thai noodle dish she'd been perfecting, and afterward the three of us sat around her small table for 2 hours talking about nothing important and everything that was. He came to her MCAT score celebration in March, when her results came in, and she called me from the library crying with relief, and I called Spencer because it felt right. And he drove over with a bottle of sparkling cider, because he knew Chloe didn't drink much, and that was the kind of detail that mattered. Naomi never called. There was no apology, no Thanksgiving repeat, no moment of realization I could point to. Spencer told me in April that things at home were difficult, that Naomi hadn't taken the way the evening ended with any kind of grace, that the Whitfields had apparently had some things to say. I didn't ask for details. I told him I was sorry it was hard because that was true regardless of anything else. In May, Chloe got her first acceptance letter. University of Cincinnati College of Medicine. She called me from the parking lot of the diner, still in her apron, and I could hear the dinner rush behind her, and she didn't even care. I cried in my truck in the logistics company parking lot. Full on, embarrassing. Both hands on the steering wheel, crying, the kind I'd been holding back since she was 6 years old. And I was standing at the front of a church trying to figure out how two people were supposed to become one and still be enough. She got into 4 schools, chose Cincinnati to stay close. She still works the diner on weekends, though fewer shifts now, because she says she's not ready to give it up entirely. She likes the regulars. She likes having something that's just hers, outside the world of applications and rotations and things that are always being evaluated. Last September, I picked her up after a Sunday brunch shift. She came out still in her uniform, smelling like coffee and maple syrup, hair in that same messy bun. She climbed into the truck and sighed and said, "Mrs. Kowalski left me a 40% tip again." I tried to give it back, and she told me her late husband was a dishwasher for 30 years and I shouldn't argue with her. "You took it. You don't argue with Mrs. Kowalski." We drove to the park and walked for an hour without any particular reason to, just because it was nice and we didn't have anywhere else to be. She asked about Spencer, whether I'd talked to him lately. I had. He was working on things, still showing up, still trying in the small, steady ways that matter more than grand gestures. "He's not a bad person," she said. "No. He just didn't stand up when he should have. That's true of a lot of people." She was quiet for a moment. The leaves were turning. That particular Ohio fall where everything looks like it's on fire in the best way. I think I understand it better now. Being in a situation where it's easier to stay quiet than to make it a thing. I see it with patients sometimes. People who let something go because confrontation is so much harder than endurance. What do you tell them? That endurance has a cost. It doesn't feel like a cost while you're doing it because it feels like nothing, but it adds up. She glanced over at me. "You finally stopped enduring. Took me too long. You did it when it counted." That's what I'll remember. We walked back to the truck when the light started to go. The drive home was quiet and comfortable, the kind of quiet that's full instead of empty. I thought about that mudroom, the bench, the pretzel bag, my daughter scrolling her phone too fast. I thought about how long she'd been absorbing things that were never hers to absorb, paying tolls on roads that shouldn't have had them. I thought about Diane. The way I always do when Chloe does something that proves she turned out exactly right without either of us fully understanding how. I think the only thing that really matters is who stands up for the people they love when standing up costs something real. Everything else is just furniture. I keep coming back to that pretzel bag, half empty, sitting on a mudroom bench next to my daughter on Thanksgiving, while 30 people 20 feet away drank wine and talked about ski resorts. That image doesn't leave me. I think it's because it captures something I'd been refusing to see clearly for years, that the cost of keeping the peace isn't nothing, it's paid by someone. And for a long time, Chloe was the one paying it. Here's what I've had to sit with. I knew something was off with Naomi long before that night. The comment about cosmetology school when Chloe was 15 and already outpacing most adults I knew. The kids' table at 21. The way she introduced my daughter to people, not as a pre-med student, not as someone working her way towards something real, but as the waitress. I noticed all of it. I filed it away. I told myself it wasn't worth the disruption. What I didn't understand then is that silence in the face of that kind of thing isn't neutrality. It's a choice. Every time I let it go, I was teaching Chloe something. That her feelings were less important than the comfort of the room. That her dignity had a negotiable price. That the people who were supposed to protect her would calculate the cost before they acted. That's a hard thing to admit about yourself. I'm admitting it anyway. What saved her? And I want to be precise about this, because she deserves the credit, was that she figured it out herself first. Long before I said a word at that table, Chloe had already decided who she was. She knew a 3.9 GPA and a 91st percentile MCAT score and 3 years of double shifts meant something real, regardless of whether Naomi's cousin from Charleston thought so. That's not something I taught her. That's something she built. Day by day, shift by shift, through the kind of sustained effort that doesn't look glamorous from the outside, but accumulates into something unshakable. That's what Claudette missed when she said character building about her husband's one summer in a burger place. What Chloe had wasn't a single formative summer. It was a practice, a way of moving through the world that said, I will earn what I have, I will be honest about what I don't know, and I will treat people decently at every level, because that's the only kind of person worth being. You can't buy that. You can't inherit it. You have to choose it over and over, especially when it would be easier not to. The cause and effect of that night is pretty straightforward when I look back at it. Naomi spent years treating Chloe as less than, and Spencer spent years looking away, and I spent years telling myself it wasn't bad enough to act on. Eventually something tipped. It always does. The question is just whether you respond before or after the damage is done. I responded late, but I responded. And here's the thing about Spencer, I think his showing up afterward, the cider at Chloe's score celebration, the dinners in February, the actual listening, I think that mattered more than if he'd done the right thing immediately. Because it's easy to act well when the stakes are clear. What's harder is to look at yourself afterward, recognize where you failed, and choose differently going forward without anyone requiring it of you. That's a different kind of integrity, slower but real. Chloe starts her residency interviews this fall. She still picks up weekend shifts at the diner. Mrs. Kowalski still overtips and dares her to argue about it. I watch my daughter and I see someone who knows exactly what she's worth, not because anyone handed it to her, but because she earned the knowledge the same way she earned everything else. That's the only thing I ever really wanted to give her. Turns out she mostly gave it to herself.